Good morning! So it's the last day of Worldcon today. That's sad. The convention technically ends at 6 p.m. I think, because that's the time the closing ceremony ends, if I remember correctly, but we're gonna be done earlier than that. Neither Mom nor I expect to go to the closing ceremonies. We never do. I don't know why. Should be a shorter day. We'll both be done with our programming at 4, and then we'll be doing something else. I don't know what. Surprise!
So, little history. In the late 1600s, Tycho Brahe was the imperial mathematician to the Emperor Rudolf von Prague in what's now the Czech Republic. And he was not really a mathematician, he was more of a statistician. He took extensive observations of the planet's positions and recorded them, okay? But he never did anything with that, okay? Now, a name that's probably more familiar to you is Johannes Kepler. He was a protege of Tycho Brahe, and he worked as Brahe's protege and assistant until Brahe died in 1601, and then Kepler inherited his position as the imperial mathematician, and he inherited all these observations that Brahe had recorded. And Kepler was a mathematician, and he said to himself, okay, now remember, the prevailing theory was that the Earth was the center of the universe, and all the planets orbited around Earth, and the sun orbited around Earth, and all the galaxies of stars orbited around Earth. And so he said, okay, well, what does the orbit of Mars look like when I plug all these numbers into an orbit around Earth?
Why not? And specifically, Frodo being stabbed on Weathertop, and it never heals, which I think is the most interesting aspect of healing magic, is that when it's not perfect, and I think it's important to, in the magical systems, especially with healing, to have a cost to that process or a lack of perfection. Otherwise it gets kind of boring.
It's interesting that the exact same scene came to me, the scene on Weathertop. And when the herb is found and Aragorn breathes on it, and even just the fragrance from the herbs is helpful to him. I think that's one of the, when you say healing magic, that is absolutely the first scene that comes to my mind.
Comes out of NESPA, as in if I ran the zoo, and all the questions asked of people are things that have actually gone wrong at conventions. So by the time the zoo game is over, people know what to do if a crisis happens.
How does the zoo game work?
It's actually a role-playing game with a whole bunch of different scenarios. When it was designed not to give you the right answer, because there isn't always the right answer. What it's designed to do is give you a framework of how to think about the problems.
The statistics and the listener stats tell us that people who listen to audio do not skim. So you have to write and select stories in a way that are going to be driving and compelling and that don't have lulls, because the time you lull in your story, you will have lost your audience.
And half the time it's made up. But I know that a torpedo blast is something like radiation going off or something, a big push of electricity. I don't know quite. But in this case, the translator focused in on it making boom noises. It doesn't make, nobody can hear you making boom in space. Okay, this is a classic. If you talk to people in Danish about these translations, they know this one because it was a review that's sort of famous in our community. The review ended by saying, I will read this book where it actually appears in Danish. This is just one of the charming examples. So the English word seed translates into the Danish frø. The word frø has more than one meaning in Danish. But you're still okay because no one can tell the difference. You don't know whether it's one kind or the other. Except that when you look at the headline here, it doesn't say seed, it says seeds. So if you add that little S there, it becomes frogs. And now we're in trouble. Actually, I don't need the whole source.
All of the various mistranslations he's come across. So he has 3 books. So the titles translate as a 9-meter land pig, Agent Orange, and then the son of the 9-meter land pig. And he also runs a Facebook group called Käännöskukkonen, which means translation flowers. It's what we call mistranslation mistakes. So if you understand Finnish, that's a very good place to go look for this. And also, many people like to vent about the mistranslations they come across there. And as Maya then grabs Meg in its mouth and runs off as Meg screams. And the subtitle says, the ostrich, throws Peter onto the table and grabs Meg's boob with its beak. So that's, I think, a case of being both definitely a little off the mark. So this is from Z Nation. I think this is another Netflix one. So the characters, I don't know this show, if some of you do, and maybe the translator made the right choice, but some of the characters were buying Oxy, and it was translated as they were buying oxygen. Whereas, in fact, they were probably buying painkillers, so OxyContin. And then in another scene, there was a firefight, and someone yelled, "I'm out." And that had been translated to Finnish as "I'm outside," which was quite odd, as what he was actually saying is he's out of bullets, and he was inside a building at the time.
From Minnesota. I grew up in Red Wing, Minnesota, and we are right on the Mississippi River. So the Mississippi River shows up a lot in my writing. And also, for some reason, buckthorn, which is one of the big invasive species around where I live, shows up all the time, and it's always trouble. Just like it is in real life. I've had to try to clear out buckthorn, and I do not enjoy it.
Because I think when we're recommending books to people, often aren't we pulled in 2 directions. The one is the notion of this is just fun and you're just really going to enjoy it, and the other is this is really meaningful and you should read it. And there are and every book to some extent finds somewhere between those 2. But 2 that felt like they were operating at opposite ends of that spectrum for me recently. One was The Big Lie by Julie Mayhew. They're both set in one, by the way, so. That's the other reason why they stuck out in my head. The Big Lie by Julie Mayhew, I think it came out in 2014. And it's a terrific book. It's about a young woman living in modern England. She's in high school. She's the good girl that we all know. She's accomplished. She's a cheerleader. She's all these things. She just happens to live in Nazi Britain. It's one of those speculative fiction works in which, it's what if the Germans had won. And what's fascinating about it is the way that you see how a country that certainly identifies itself as very much in opposition to a Nazi regime in our world, the manner in which they actually might adopt that. And so it's challenging for us because we sometimes want to shape the main character. Why are you buying into all this? But the reasons for which she buys into the terrible things are entirely the same reasons that I think a lot of us would. And so it forces you not just to see this interesting piece of speculative fiction, but it forces you to look at your own world you're in, the bubble that you live in, and things like that. So, and then the flip side of that for me is the Screaming Staircase by Jonathan Stroud. I'm on a panel with him next week, and so I thought I should read one of the books. And it's so much fun, and it's so much fun precisely because it evokes so much of the English notion, you know, that Englishness. You know, there's ghosts that are coming, and so, you know, and only kids can see them, and so they create these very English types of institutions, and then there's this kind of, you know, Victorianism, even though it's set in the present country. So
my students, every single one of them wanted to be there. It was one of their fondest wishes that they could have been in that huge gaggle of people. In Chicago, I thought, oh, perhaps something a little different, a smaller convention might work, and wow, there were awesome guests at WorldCon, and so that was checked off the students' list of things they wanted. And there was cosplay, aka masquerade, which we later learned WorldCon is the birthplace of cosplay, which students were very interested in, and none of them had known about that. And then, perhaps the very best part of this whole story, the very next WorldCon was coming to our hometown. And this, I could get the Marianas brothers to pay for. The talking point you can start with and then develop many ideas out of it. So of course the undergraduates were interested in the Big Five personality characteristics. The work here from the Big Five, a lot of it comes from work by Gordon Allport and by Walter Michelle Costa and Cray. A bunch of people have done research on the Big Five personality characteristics. And the Big Five are typically categorized or described as being openness to experience, conscientiousness, agreeableness, extroversion, and eroticism. And each of these characteristics is a continuum. So we all have some of each. We follow along a continuum for a high to low on each of these. So the students were interested in perhaps looking at the population at WorldCon and seeing how WorldCon participants stacked up against the general population.
It is 4:30 and the con is over. How do we feel?
Oh, tired. It was a good con.
It was a good con.
It was a busy con. I think it's one of the cons where I did the most panels. Like seriously, I don't remember doing 7 panels in the day before.
It might be one of the cons where I did the least panels, conversely. It's just when the room was too full, I didn't try for another one. I just sat for an hour.
Yeah. It was a very busy crowd. There were way too many people for the size of the venue.
Yeah, they did stop selling the tickets, but maybe not. Just the full weekend passes, maybe there were too many of those already.
But you don't stop selling those because that's your budget for the convention. That's how you make your money.
Yeah.
I don't think I sat in one room that wasn't at least 3/4 full.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Like, it was busy.
Okay. And do we have a plan for the rest of the evening, or is it just chilling at the hotel?
Chilling at the hotel. I've had enough. My legs are killing me. My back is killing me.
Okay. So we're signing off, I guess. If there's anything
Interesting.
else, we might do an addendum, and if not, probably not. If there's anything to do in Helsinki, we have 2 more days to do it, and then it's back home.
Yep.
Yay!